What's going on, community? Good to see you guys, man. It's the first AMA after the launch. Ton going on, a lot of cool stuff in the space. It's definitely a lot being said, man. Obviously, we're seeing so many people enjoying the protocol. We're going to touch on some of all the FUD and noise we see as well. Obviously, what's going on with loan token, all that kind of cool stuff. If you guys want to start getting some questions going, let me know. We'll jump in. We'll answer as many of them as we can. But guys, it's insane to be on MAINNET. It's insane to see how many people are using, actually using DeFi, man. To see how many people are actually opening up vaults, running through these things. It's pretty intense, guys. It's a lot of fun. I've always had tons of people reaching out. I can see some of the comments here now. A lot of you guys we've reached out to personally. A lot of congratulations. A lot of people with questions. Obviously there was a ton of time on testnet, but again, just so much time goes in. So many other projects, protocols. People got a lot of questions. So I'm going to start by just kind of rolling through some of the metrics we have, and as along the way, when I see big questions here pop up, I'll try to answer as many of as I can. So a little less structured than we're used to doing here. Got the headphones in the back and everything. That way, you guys know it's me, not a scammer on Telegram. And yeah, we'll dig through it, guys. So I already see a couple people in here. Good to see MCR. Good to see you guys. Godfather, I've seen some of your posts, man. Good to see you. Fast is always here for the tech or bribes or whatever that crazy guy's got going on, man. Fast, I know the conversation we kind of had the other day a little bit was kind of in private, man, but class act, man. It's good talking to you, brother. Thanks for jumping in here. Mr. Gonzalez. Cheers, buddy. It's good to see you as well, man. Hope you're having a good time, man. Everyone got a little lean back. See that LL gear on. Let's see here. Okay, so explain the giveaway for those that haven't heard. I hear y'all getting out some pulse shop in the balls. Yeah. So the easiest way is to go through all the technicals. It's all listed right there on the website. We can post it in here in the chat here shortly. Giveaway is a giveaway, man. So it's love liquid loans. Hashtag love liquid loans. Post your why. The whys are always important. I have a short video that's just kind of hype on it, but for the technicals, just go to the website, go through the giveaway. It's a billion pulse. There's going to be a handful of different people who win on both the social sharing and on opening the vault. And that's it, just a way to give back to the community, try to get people involved. You dangle a little bit of a carrot and they get interested and want to see these things. So if you're familiar with DeFi, comfortable with the vault, things you're going to do, rock and roll, open a vault, let's go. And if you're not as savvy there, but you still want to participate and you're happy with the protocol, want to shout us out, do the social sharing side. That is more difficult to say quickly than you think. Miss Sandy Beach, it's good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Amir, thank you for asking this one. By the way, I'm pretty sure that means princess. I don't know if that's where you got it from or if I'm saying that correctly. So this one got asked a few times. So whenever you do the deployment, it just takes time to go over these things and test things out. So that delay there, if you look, you see it on the chart. There's a few things we'll touch on this. So you can see it on the chart because we just launched contracts, right? We want to have time to actually go through vet things, make sure they're correct. It's a little different when you have something like LL where the token's really involved in the deployment of the contracts. We want to make sure that everything's right, so we have to do Q&A. So there's that lag there for all the insider whale craziness. So it just takes time. If you look, there's almost no volume until then. But there's so many bots, so many people are out there like tracking the contracts, looking for these things ahead of time that there's only so much you can do, right? You can either rush your sort of on MAINNET Q&A, or you got to say, hey, some people are going to find this thing and beat everybody to it. You got to pick one way or the other. As always, we go slow. We take the conservative route. We double check, make sure that things are valid. As for the spike, so this is another big one there. So when you look at those spikes, that initial spike that it's like something silly, what happens whenever you have essentially no liquidity and a bot buys, it just pounces the price to the moon. But there's only a few dollars that move around, right? So when you look at that side of the chart, it's basically this bid red mark. It's almost like when we, a lot of the hex players would remember this from like the Staker app, depending on what and other charts they would use. It's almost like a sandwich attack, right? Like we see this with like MEV and certain things on ETH. You can see this on charts where you get this massive tail end wick. So it's kind of irritating because it takes a minute to sit there and play with the charts to actually get them clear, right? But essentially, it's no value, right? Like it's the chart, the price was never realistically that. It's like $6 that you saw move up and down there. So you got to do what you got to do, right? It takes time to get contracts out for them to be clean. It is what it is, whoever can get there. And then that spike, it's not real value. Again, it's just low liquidity spikes as a bot basically came after that deployment. Yeah, it scars the chart. It is what it is, but it doesn't move the needle, right? It is what it is. Boom. Smashing likes and shares. I'm terrible about reminding people to do that. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Yes. This is a good one. Okay, so is there a correlation on why PLS price dropped when LL released? So here's the big one. Whenever we look at charts, because most of us don't understand them, and most is including me as well, there's so much going on. Like we're always looking for a reason to tell a story. So if you look, it basically pumped around the time that LL came out. How much of that is LL? How much of that is, all these ETF news? You tell me, guys. And then when you look at the downside, that everyone's sure that one's LL. So let's pull it up real quick because this is a good one here. So give me just a second, guys. I don't do as much of this like cool live streaming stuff. Usually we let the smart guys in the community do this. Okay, here we go. All right, let me make it a little bigger here. Okay, so everybody can see the chart now. All right, so I'm going to flip over here. So this one, this wick here, this is LL's fault. Everything dropped, right? Okay, well, what about this movement and this movement and this movement and this movement? So again, is there some correlation? Are we seeing some of the whale games being played there? Maybe, probably not. Usually whenever we see the whale games kind of thing being brought up, most of the time, we're just trying to explain things that we don't really have that good of a take on, right? So it's whale games, it's bots. What we really mean is we're trying to add some character. So whale games do go on. At some point, is some big bag holder going to take the time to try to push down the price to hit some of these liquidated vaults? Sure. But it's way harder than people think. In the range at which that's profitable is much, much smaller than people think. So for one, you have weighted averages. The way the price feed is done in LL, it's designed to smooth out spikes, right? So you don't want spikes in the protocol. So naturally, the way things are designed, spikes are just less pronounced. The other is you're going to need some slippage, right? Like you want to push the price down. You're the one selling that price down. So you better be sure that however far that you push the price down and all that weight that you moved it down, that you have to basically execute that move and then be able to go get the liquidations, right? And remember, the liquidations aren't sold on market. So you can't push down and get that kind of cascade effect that you see brought up sometimes. So we'll touch a little more on that, but essentially the range of players and scenarios at which it actually makes sense is extremely small. So yes, it can happen. Yes, it can go on, but it's much, much less often than the kind of game theory stuff. Sitting here as a quarterback, watching charts, watching crypto, it's way more engaging to think like, ooh, who's going to get liquidated, and that there's all these kind of puppet master stuff moving around. Most of the time, guys, it's just buys and sells. It's buys and sells, and whatever buy the rumor or sell the news event is going on is why these things tend to move. So right now, for the most part, you're going to see it's a variety of different things, right? Whatever FUD they're throwing at us or RH, you're going to see that, hey, everyone's running to jump on the next green candle. Bitcoin's pumping, so it's going there. Then there's it's going to slosh with altcoin season. You're going to have a lot of variety of reasons there. But again, chances are that it's evil, whale, game, magic. Probably not, guys. For the most part, again, it's just straight up buys and sells and whatever the rumor or news is going on at the time. But it's a good question. I like to double check there. Can I speak with customer service about opening a vault? Despite what a lot of people think, I am not customer service. I try to help out as many people as we can. We try to put out the good info, but no customer service in DeFi, guys. Yes, when redemptions start, will the loan yield go up? So again, it is based on other factors, but just in a vacuum, yes. So redemptions, where are we at? Day 4 will be in 10 days or so. We'll put out like an official little heads up. Hey, redemptions are going to kick off in 4 days or 2 days or so. So redemptions, that fee that goes into there, that 0.5%, it's also variable there, but in general, it's 0.5%. That fee gets paid out directly to loan holders. So once we see redemption on, my best guess is that you'd see this big spike. That first day, especially if it's below peg, you'll see a big rush there. Everybody will want to click the button the first time. and it'll probably smooth out after that, but you will see that yield go up. And then also we put the yield in there that you see for both the stability pool and the loan token is daily. Because again, I did a few videos talking about this, especially in the LL system. You see these things move much more dramatically by the day. And so early on, we wanted to make sure that that picture was very clear for users. So again, everyone wants to default to annual. It's easier for most people, and they're trying to compare it to other things. So we're probably we're going to move it back shortly, probably anyway, and then you'll see that number go up. But if people are actually looking at their issuance gains and what they're seeing in the stability pool, it's substantially higher than that rate if they're thinking that rate is annual. So one, it's higher than people think, and also, yes, it'll go up with redemptions. Amir, you're more than welcome. Mr. Sider, one, you're a class act, man. You've done a lot of cool stuff. You always seem to jump in the right times. I do appreciate the heads up. Yeah, the chart is not pretty. We'll touch on that here in a minute. I'm just going to kind of answer the most specific questions we're all around. But yeah, bud, not just our chart, but the charts in general in the ecosystem are not great right this second. Yeah, Miss Annie, I'm pretty sure to check, but I'm 90% sure that Amira spelled that way is actually princess in Arabic. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. Boom. Mr. Apex Wolf, can you explain the LP reward on V2? Yes. So the LP reward is pretty simple. You provide LP into the USDL PLS pair on PulseX V2. The reason it's V2 is because that way everyone who's providing that liquidity will actually get the fees. So it's really similar to like an INC farm, except for rather than putting that PLP tokens inside of the PLS XDEX inside the ink farm, you're going to take those tokens and then put them in the LP rewards tab, which I'll show you real quick. Stop screen, share screen, close tab. Boom. All right, give me 1 second here. Okay, so you will take those PLP tokens. You'll come in here and stake. You can also use the link right here to make sure you're in the right pool. This will take you to V2. The only problem is with the IFPS, it's kind of clunky, and it seems like about half the users actually, once you open this, you have to toggle it from it'll start with V2 native, toggle it from V1 to V2. If you get, there's a goofy error, or sometimes it'll say, do you want to start the pool? So if you get that, all you need to do is toggle from V1 back to V2, and then that'll have the right link there. And then the other part of the LP rewards, so that's how you would accrue them. The other part of the LP rewards is right here. There's a loan emission that goes out to that pool for 42 days. So it's a flat 42 days. The contract's already minted those tokens, and it's going to sit there and emit them to everyone who's in that pool. So a couple of things on this that people have already brought up. One, you can claim the loan as often as you like. So you don't have to worry about like yanking them out on day 42 or anything like that. The other is, since you don't have the PLP tokens in your wallet and you have them staked here, if you go to PulseX, it's not going to show that liquidity. So one of those things that is once you've done that, and you can verify it at the time, and then when you go to stake the PLP, as long as you're seeing that loan reward emission show up, then your LP is where you thought it is, and everything's going right. So had a few people jump in and were like, hey, I can't see my liquidity anymore, so they were concerned on that. Ahmed Habibi. Okay, how to repay the loan. So this is one pretty common. Most people haven't really looked. If you try to repay the loan to where the active loan amount is less than 2,000, it won't let you. It'll give you a prompt saying you have to have 2,000. So what you're doing is trying to repay it to a too low amount. So essentially, you either have to close it or keep it above 2,000. And that's all you're seeing there. So however you're doing, whatever you're doing there, you're doing it correctly. You just either need to close the vault if you would like, or you got to keep it open at over 2,000. And then what's the second part there? Oh, how to redeem PLS. So the redemptions, you can do them right there in the tab. I'll pull them back up again here. So the redemptions, again, super simple. You would just take USDL that you have in your wallet, and it's just as simple as selecting how much or manually type it in. It'll show you what that redemption fee is. And then if you have your wallet connected, it'll just have the button right here. And so doing it is very, very simple. Again, that will turn on in approximately 10 days now, and we'll make sure we put out an update or two that shows that. Look at those numbers, guys. 373, over 17 million in TVL. And we'll see that go up with the PLS price. 6 million is staked. So for everyone worried about the PLS price coming down from liquidations, there's essentially, depending on how you want to view it, again, trying to use some different language to make it easier on people, there's essentially $6 million worth of limit orders that are sitting there ready to pick up any liquidation. And if you follow in the Telegram, you can see people kind of get excited when they see one get close. And there's 9 million USDL in circulation. 9 million has been minted in just a few days. Absolutely amazingly cool stuff. Yeah, brother. Chart's tough. So, I mean, you can program all these things. You can build the yield. Right now, the loan holders are getting, again, you got to look through calculating it, over 100%, APR. It's going to be even higher once redemptions get there, but you can't program a chart, right? So people have sold, million reasons on that. You can yell at all kinds of people. You can look at the ecosystem, as PLS goes up, people are typically in profit. They're not looking to try to cash out. The time it took both us and PLS to get to market, now we're seeing the bull market kind of run up, but there's a lot of people who have still been hurting. So some people just needed the liquidity. People just ready to dump on it. So it's one of those things. One man's asset is another man's liability. I get it, guys. Believe me, I'm a little cavalier sometimes about not caring about the price because I just have long time horizons and I like the yield side of things. But it doesn't mean that I don't get it, that people are, upset or just concerned at seeing the bag down that low that quick. It just takes time, guys. Like, it's a yield instrument. It's paying out fantastic. The protocol's solid. Charts and LP tend to come with time. Like, it just really is what it is. I don't make forward-facing price statements on our stuff or anything else. It's a little tough, guys. We'll see how this stuff pulls out. But again, when the protocol is working that well, we see that much adoption. Things in crypto that work well, that have market fit, that have adoption, they tend to go up and to the right. Mr. Dixon, now we're talking. Now we're talking. I want the full experience. You want to see it? It's good stuff, guys. It's funny. All right. Is there a place to track close on our files or the page? How fast is the analytics page update? I don't actually know the true cycling time on it. It's pretty quick. A couple of things there. So we're working on a few different Twitter style alert things, similar to what you see with on the bridge or with PLS and PulseX. You get those kind of price alerts. We're looking at building out some of those alerts, which just be cool, right? Just so people can keep up with them. And then things like Dune Analytics. I really like a lot of the cool stuff that gets put into Dune Analytics. So we'll probably be looking at doing something similar, maybe on Dune, maybe all ourselves. We're working on some of these cool reporting tools. There's a couple of third-party teams that are actually doing the exact same, working on kind of automatic monitoring for vaults and extra stuff. So this is a good one. It's the reason why we have other teams building cool stuff on top, and why some of this will be third party is you can just only stuff so much material into a DApp and not overwhelm users. So if we had every single spread and ARB opportunity and this stat and this stat and that stat, it's just overwhelming for new users. So we'll probably end up, you're going to end up seeing protocols that have automation features, that have other things built on top, that have other tokens built on top that also still use the LL contract. So you're going to see all kinds of spicy stuff. You'll see, we could see front ends that are just analytics overdrive, or we could just see things like Dune Analytics that are just, all the data you could look for. Tons of that stuff comes. Again, just takes a little time. There's already 3 or 4 projects that are building on top, cool front ends. Those solutions, we're working on them internally as well. So right now, the easiest place is just kind of track them in analytics. You can look at them through the chain. It's a little difficult, but we'll have more monitoring tools coming with time. And the same thing for Fetch. So obviously, we haven't even unlocked the front end for Fetch yet. It's beautiful. It's the same kind of quality that you see with what we have on Liquid Loans. It's an absolute masterclass of DApp design. It'll give another token. We'll see how distribution comes. None of that's been made official yet. We'll definitely get everyone up to date. We'll let them know how that token's going to get dispersed. There will be no second raise. That's one that always gets asked. But that's another front end. Be ways for people to run reporters. There's a staking feature for the Fetch token. So other cool stuff will be coming out. So a lot more coming down the pipe for us. Victory is yours. You got them fast. Yeah, Davis, man. Again, as I said, I typically have long horizons with just everything. Same with PLS. It's down. We're doing stuff, building. People are setting up validators, all that cool stuff. But It hurts a bit, man. You know, to see BTC pumping so hard, I'm imagining again that we'll see that kind of slosh back and forth. Sometimes you just see that people jump for the green candle and then tend to jump back in. We'll see how that plays out. It looks like you're kind of seeing, I have to go validate this. A few people have dropped it to me that are usually pretty on top of that. A couple of big validators, I think, are kind of moving the price down. So whatever their rationale is, and then you're seeing, you know, more off ramping through the bridge. So haven't really tracked it too much, but again, price comes with time. We're seeing more and more cool stuff on Pulse, not less. So prices tend to move when stuff's cool. Are there any plans in on PulseChain? Yep, absolutely. ETN. Hopefully you're Travis Etienne, the running back, or maybe his dad, since he's a junior for the Jaguars. But yeah, Fetch will have its own token. You need it to both be staked to run a reporter, and a reporter is kind of like a validator on the Oracle side. And then there's also a staking mechanic as well. Again, we haven't really released any of the tokenomics on that. They will be publicly available. There's going to be a distribution mechanic, no extra raise or any of that kind of stuff. But yes, there is a token. It is similar to Telor, and we'll have more details on that, especially to get the front end up and things like that. When it comes time to remove LP from the USD LPS, does that just claim Texas? Yes. So the only difference from, say, just having the tokens in your wallet or having an ink farm is that, again, when you pull them up on liquid loans, you're not gonna see that, right? So as long as you take your POP, stake it in the LP rewards, you're gonna see that loan claim, and as long as you're seeing that loan emission come out, you have everything right. But again, you'll just basically unstake them from our platform, and then you'll go back to PulseX and pull them out just like normal. So it's no different than holding in your own wallet, except for now you have them over here and you're taking that loan emission. But as far as your LP position itself, 100% identical. Yes. Yep. So again, a little bit of nuance here. There is no actual inflation. All of the loan is already minted. It's just sitting in those wallets. So if you see the big market cap or like all of those big contracts that have a ton of it, that's because the stability pool, the LP rewards, all that stuff, or people who are going to claim all that stuff's already minted. So there's no technical inflation, but the emissions that you're talking about. So the stability pool gets an emission. It goes out for 30 years and it halves every year. So that process gets slower and slower and slower. And then again, there's 150 billion that'll go out to the LP rewards. So you have that incentive to make sure the system's whole, providing, you know, liquidity, getting USDL out there, making sure there's a ton of the stability pool to make sure, again, there's all those rigors to take care of liquidations, and that USDL is able to off ramp and move between other tokens very easily. So that's the emissions there. So it'll turn off completely from the LP rewards in 42 days. The stability pool, it does stay up, it just halves. And so it gets greatly reduced. So there's your schedule. Probably. I had a couple of different places that have already reached out, so I'm really excited, very thankful. I kind of put out a post. We'll try to put out a little prettier one from our main account to make sure those guys know we appreciate it. DBank, those guys have already integrated it, so you can see your liquid loans, basically stakes. Very, very cool. Really appreciate those guys. Rabby did as well. Very appreciative. And then in the ecosystem, there's already a Fux pool. There's a 9mm pool that's up. I think the 9-inch guys are going to be working on something fairly soon. Hopefully those guys get all the logos and everything integrated. KG from Internet Money did it almost right off the bat, basically instantly. Shout out to him. So we do have a lot of integration in the ecosystem, and there's people outside the ecosystem that are already, you know, integrating all the stuff from our platform in there. I think it was Live Coin Watch. I can figure it out. I'll try to make a post on it or put it in the Telegram. A few of those listing sites have already popped up with it. But again, you know, it just takes time getting out to everybody, making sure they have, hey, you know, here's the contracts also. That's another one. The contract should be verified later today, next day or two. Just going over a few of the comments, getting everything's dialed in. So we'll have the contracts verified and those logos out, and then you'll start to see it populate on all these third-party sites. Brother, appreciate that. It's all good. Just bear market stuff. It always, whenever you're up, you feel like you're never going to be down. And when you're down, you never feel like you're going to be up again. It's a bit of a balancing act, right? Like I want to make sure that, you know, you're doing the people who are, you know, really, really struggling or having a difficult time or just haven't had tokens dump, or maybe just between how they position themselves. Again, you know, a lot of us, if they went heavy in PLSX and this one, they're just feeling like all they've gotten is L's. I sympathize. It takes some time. We're going to see how the rest of the ecosystem goes. Hopefully the more tools that come out, we're going to see, more and more improvements. Again, the yield is there. The protocol adoption is really strong. It doesn't make you feel better about the chart right this second. But again, anytime you have where all the metrics are strong and the price is down, that usually means opportunity. So best wishes. Everyone take some deep breaths. Maybe don't stare at the charts. Make sure you're staking, earning the yield is what it is. Hex Fetty, what's up, man? Been around a long time. Really appreciate that. Mr. Frazier, how is the stability pool rewards earned? Okay, so there's two different mechanics. So there's the loan emission that we discussed earlier, which gets halved every year. So just for being in the stability pool, you're going to get that loan emission that comes out. And then essentially, again, the docs are there. You can look right in the DApp. You can watch the redemption video. I just always use a little different language, trying to get a little different take to make it easy. Essentially, the stability pool is basically like limit orders that are open for liquidations. So whenever there's a liquidation, there's 110% collateral, right? So whenever that vault gets liquidated, all that pulse basically gets sold to the stability pool. Now, the owner of that vault does not lose their whole bag. That PLS gets liquidated, but they keep whatever USDL they minted, right? So essentially, there's a 10% loss plus a little bit depending on what the origination fee was there. So they're basically down that 10%, and then whatever they do with their USDL is whatever they did. But the way that liquidation comes, all that PLS basically gets bought by the stability pool, and you basically buy a dollar 9.5 cents worth of pulse for $1. So minus the liquidators incentive, that premium there gets collected by the stability pool. Now, there's a couple of little interesting caveats here. So if you think of the stability pool as, hey, I want to stick stability coin here, it's going to be maybe your first wave of defense. If your vault starts to get low in collateral, you can see it topped off, which we've seen numerous wallets do on chain. You can watch them move it around. I've done it with my own. Seen a bunch of other players do it as well. So sometimes it's just, hey, this is where an easy spot is, and you can use both the PLS to either top off the vault, or you can use USDL to repay. So whether or not you've actually accrued PLS gains or USDL, both of those can be used to sort of top off the vault. So especially early on, that's a great place to work through getting used to managing your vault. So that's how that payout functions. So I touched on a few things there, but again, the stability pool, just for being there, you're going to take that loan emission, which is the incentive to make sure that pool is always really, really nice and thick. And I think right now there's like 5 or 6 million USDL sitting in there. And then again, anytime there is a liquidation event, you're essentially going to acquire that pulse as like a limit order, but with that 9.5% premium. There is a lot of knee jerk. So I'm trying to think of a few of the things I've read just to clarify a few things. So we're definitely on the news cycle. People are talking, that's for sure. So let's, if you guys can think of any of the FUD there, just if you'll put it in quotation marks, so that I know that's a comment, I can try to address a couple of them. One of the big ones was, again, that price action. Guys, liquidations don't hit market. Now, people who have received those liquidations can then go sell them on market. But I mean, again, anyone can go sell PLS, but that recent price action is not cascading liquidations. Again, maybe there's some well games. I doubt it. But you don't really see that price action. The other big one is that, everyone who's, touched the protocols direct when they saw that drawdown. If you look here, let me bring this back up. Nope, wrong tab. If you look at the analytics, so here's the number of vaults open, around 560. The liquidations are at 71. Now, so you have a little over 10%, but if you look, it actually went down. So there was at least 1 or 2 vaults in here that either there's a few things they could be doing. I don't really want to bring them up too much because it kind of is like, oh, I want to try that play. It's a little reckless, but essentially, when a few of the times when the USDL has been at a large premium, there's a reason players will get really, really aggressive there. It makes sense for them. You don't really need to dive into it too much. But if you look, again, the big majority of them actually were liquidated early on here in this like 2 to 3 day. So I think what we just saw was one of the things that people had talked about kind of as a strategy was, hey, basically setting it at 115, 120. And it's sort of like a call option where, hey, I'm willing to sell out at this range, but they don't want to basically take the sell. So they say, all right, if I set it at 115, 120, if it runs off, then cool, I'm still in the game. And if it eventually goes down, hey, I'm willing to eat that 10% for the upside if it kind of just runs off. So it looks like that's what you kind of see there, because the more violent price action was actually later on, and you actually don't really see that many liquidations throughout here. So again, you're going to have a bit of a learning curve, which is why we preached to make sure that people, understand these things. You can come and stay, you can use the stability pool, you can do loan, you can stand on the sidelines, anything other than just recklessly using DeFi. So that's why we're really, really particular on how we educate on that. So again, I think you're just seeing a bit of a learning curve, a few people taking advantage of kind of a unique USDL margin, and then some people that were using it as kind of a call put. I think it's a combination. I would think that most of it is just being too aggressive and newer users. I would imagine we'll see that balance out. But as you can see here, both in just the rate of how many people liquidated versus how many vaults are open, given a pretty decent price move down, especially when people were pretty bullish, right? So you get really bullish sentiment and a drawdown, like that's what you'll really see the most liquidation events. So I would say that, again, the majority are pretty okay and are pretty happy with their position, especially if even the ones that were liquidated, if they were sitting there in the stability pool, they're sitting there eating all that gain back up. And if it moved down, again, there's a variety of ways that people can play that, but just in the simple side, the vast majority of vaults are up and rocking. They're collecting a ton of yield. I'm sure most of those players are very, very happy about where they are. And again, the other is they only lose 10%, right? So you're going to see players who would treat this more aggressive than most of us would actually intuitively do. So I think there's kind of a separation there between the different players, right? If you're really aggressive and treating this closer to like traditional leverage, or just, hey, I'm basically treating this as, again, kind of a call option. If the price runs up, cool, I don't want to really, I don't want to sell the bottom. You can use that as an option there. So there's, again, a variety of ways that people will use the tool. But if you look at people who have been, sitting around 300-500% collateral, everyone's fine. That's the whole point, right? So again, when you look at the metrics, I think conservative players will see what aggressive players are doing and be a little more concerned. And I'm kind of okay with that. I'd rather players are more concerned than less concerned. But this isn't the price moved down and LL exploded. It's not the case, guys. So yeah, it's a good one to work through though. Hey, JB. A few people in here. Again, I would go double check at, you can type !claim in the main chat. Don't trust links. Don't trust addresses. Grab all the addresses from the DApp and you can type !claim in the main chat in our Telegram. So get that pull back up there. Yeah, a lot of FUD. Again, naturally, when there's like just negativity in the ecosystem, people kind of see greener pastures with Bitcoin still pumping. It's going to come. I think there's a lot of reasons for it. Again, loan tokens down. I mean, again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That chart's rough. We did see a lot of players draw down there, but again, you take the yield. Charts come in time. For everyone that that kind of says they're wrecked. You're only wrecked when you sell, right? So again, keep your head up. There's all kinds of valuable things to do in the ecosystem. It's a good time to either just hold your bags and learn. You can accumulate if that's where your head's still at. Take advantage of these DeFi once you understand how to use them properly and try to make it out. That's actually super cool. If you're, I'm assuming that you're talking about going to CoinGecko. Absolutely, guys. Like, this is community stuff, man. Everybody can reach out, do their part. If there's things you want to participate in, like say sending this stuff out here, by all means, you're encouraged to do so. If you need some support, reach out to the admins or myself or a lot of guys in the community. And if you're going to do forms like that, if you have it kind of figured out, you can always post like stuff like that in the main Telegram and say, hey, I've got this figured out. Here's the form. Hey, go here, guys. Let's get it listed on those things. So yeah, a lot of that stuff is community effort. Yes, it is 5.5 trillion. So all of that is minted already. So that all exists in the contracts, but the emissions is what happens. So there's a realized inflation on what is actually available. So that circulating supply will go up for some time, but there's no actual inflation. So again, a little bit tricky there to understand if just haven't been around that crypto. So there's an inflation on what comes on market, but the actual supply is static and will never go up. Yeah, exactly, Davis. Let it fly. Remember, Hex was 2 cents last bull cycle on the Bitcoin top. I'll usually run on the BTC retracement. That's kind of what I was getting at, Jim. You know, there's that correlation, what we saw between basically a lot of that ETF news and when we launched. So it's, you know, which one of these kind of pushed the chart up. But again, I think you tend to see that kind of a sloshing, especially like that BTC move is violent, right? It's violent, and there's a lot of narrative to make people feel good about it, right? So if you get a pump out of nowhere, you get a lot of the, who did it? Is it this thing? Is it well games? But when you have ETF news, when you have what do they call it? Like a Mr. 4 million, there's a buyer. I don't know that he's been identified yet. That's like consistently making these pretty gnarly buys in Bitcoin. So you have, you know, El Salvador, you have all these different areas with Bitcoin that are coming out that are making people like feel that this pump is real, that we're closer to the halvening. So not only do you get a pretty good parabola looking pump on BTC, but there's all the reasons to now believe that it's real and we're back, baby. So I would imagine that typical sloshing is even more dramatic than usual, but I'm just kind of speculating there, but I would probably think the same as well. Yeah, bro. I mean, you got to have a balance between explaining where we're at, letting people know, making sure that people understand that you're not just like fake smiling. And, you know, so you got to call a spade, you know, the charts don't look pretty. It is what it is, but Pulse has more support, more projects, more stuff, more things going on than it did beforehand, and the price is lower. That typically means opportunity. Everyone can pick and choose how they feel. Again, you can call it coping or you can call it reality. I'm a long-term guy as well, not going anywhere. So I'm with you, brother. Well, that's slick. Cool, Chris. That's neat, man. So there you go. Again, these things come, they come slow and then all at once. So we'll see more and more cool stuff coming. Again, hopefully, Will, Davis, if you guys want to push in that stuff with CoinGecko, if you guys need something, let me or the admins know. But again, all this stuff comes with adoption, man. You know, having that thing in, you know, Rabby and DBang, stuff's cool. You know, people notice that stuff. And, you know, as we kind of seem to kind of address a bit of the FUD, most of the time, again, when we don't understand, we just kind of take what we know and try to connect the dots and paint a picture. So whenever people see things like all this integration with other dApps, it just gives a sense of security, right? So, you know, to some degree, there's the technical side of crypto, and then there's this confidence game. And probably my favorite thing that RH ever said, one, I like the watch story about him complaining about, I think it was a Petit Philippe. It was like, hey, this watch sucks because it's actually too expensive. But my favorite thing he actually ever said was, you could be technically right and price wrong. And I think that's a really powerful sentiment. So you can look at all the technicals about why someone's working well, why we see more adoption, more transaction volume, and still be wrong on the price, right? So most of the metrics we see on PulseChain between engagement, again, transactions now, all these kind of things, they're all bullish and price hasn't really matched. Again, that's that technically right, price wrong. But again, typically those things eventually will sort themselves out. So we'll see where it goes. Yeah, what type of onboarding is the team doing? So again, this is one of those things that falls into like we be careful about forfeits and stuff. But I attend quite a few events. I went to Consensus. I went to ETH Denver, the North American Blockchain Summit. Obviously, I try to stop at some community events when I can. Shout out Matty Allen, who's an absolute legend for setting a lot of that cool stuff up. Audit, Hex Lion, all the guys on the 555 tour did an incredible job. It was a great time hanging out with them. And then recently also the PulseChain tour, RG3, legend, SJ, a lady and a scholar. Happy birthday. Everybody should reach out to her. I think her birthday was like 2 days ago. So definitely give her a big shout. And then Black Hexagon also, her birthday was pretty recently. So make sure we shout out those ladies. Black Hexagon is another one who is unbelievably underrated. She is a just stellar lady. She's a fun person to be around. And she does a lot of admin work on the backside, helping with scheduling tour and events and getting out product and helping people out. She's a legend. So yeah, I try to attend a bunch of those kind of events. And then there's some things overseas as well. But yeah, we've attended a bunch of those events. I plan on doing more of those things. You have to be careful about how much you sort of broadcast certain things before things have launched. So that opens us up a little bit. So there's more events, more things we plan on getting to. We're, again, trying to get integrated everything. We're getting our stuff updated. So you sort of, clean up your room first, and we'll do more and more outreach, both for ourselves and, for PulseChain as well, because again, we're built on top of the chain. Like, as we can see, the better the chain does, the better we do. So there's a lot of symbiosis there. So a lot to be done. Again, if people are organizing things or they see an event that they're like, hey, let's get WaLLrus's bald head there. If you think it's viable, reach out to me. Let me know what's going on. We'll see what we can't figure out. Yeah, thanks, Archie. Tool's absolute fire. Well, we're going to have to get the chart to reflect that. And by the way, the Hex chart is not our fault. The PulseChain chart is not our fault, and neither is the loan chart. Guys, charts go where they go. People will sell. People will buy. We're going to see LP come up. There's multiple. I know that the low LP on loan is another concern. One, if you use DEX aggregators, there's already like over 100K. So most people's buys are pretty easy to go through. There was a ton of volume on it early on. So sure, there's likely to see more LP from all kinds of different players in the space. So I think it'll help support those things. But again, charts go where they go. You can try to float and buy a chart, and all you do is basically incentivize day one, day two sellers. But again, that stuff's already out there. Charts go where they go. Appreciate that, DJ and Hexkin, a lot. You guys know I've been very, very PulseChain first. That's kind of been my baby. Again, big RH fan. I'd like a lot of things outside of the ecosystem. There's a lot of really, really interesting people to do cool stuff. Some of the guys I would shout out are like Gene Hoffman over at Chia. Guys, just brilliant, brilliant mind. Dan Hughes, the guys over at Radix, super, super savvy. There's a lot of smart people in the ecosystem. I've been, really, really fortunate to get a chance to spend some time with those guys. The Cardone dudes lately. Actually, even though they're not very nice to us, the blockchain Bay guys are actually pretty cool, really smart guys. They did a couple of cool things. They sent up a BTC payment system at one of the events I was at. So again, whether they're nice to us or not, they're still pretty cool guys. So I do appreciate the shout out, brother. Yeah, man. We're just gonna have to deal with Brock Purdy. It's a thing, It was, I really like PFF. They're like data science guys in the football world, and they were very like, hey, Purdy's just basically around a bunch of rock stars. He's doing well, but he's kind of doing the game manager type thing. It's hard to argue about him now, man. He's a problem, and that team is stacked. And when you look at what his contract is, he's basically free. And in your Eagles, man, they're a handful as well. I actually bet on them to win the division last year, so. Even though I'm still mostly a Cowboys fan at heart, yeah, it's pretty wild, man. All right, so Fast says, so 1 year from now, loan will be much more rare with half a mission from the stability pool and normal LP farming. Correct. So again, LP farming, 42 days, finito, and then every year you'll see that having effect as well. Yeah, there's a variety of things. From what I understand, there's some stuff already getting built to try to do interesting things with loan. But again, that's not us. But yes, that is correct. All right, let me see what Pulse member here says. Okay. At what percent would you feel comfortable doing a borrow USDT? I'm assuming you mean USDL and not get liquidated. Okay. So one, if you have to ask, probably don't open a vault yet at all. Take your time. There is no rush on these things. Yes, people who get in early are making big yield and incentive, but it's not worth getting wrecked. It's not worth missing these things out. So take your time. Make sure you understand. Go through the video. We have a ton of information. There's even a quiz. We're doing all kinds of cool stuff. Make sure you go through those things. But just, again, for some round numbers, if you have to ask, I would not be going below roughly, 300 or so. You want to kind of keep it as a range. But the other big component of that is how liquid is what you're going to do. So if let's say you have 100K and you're going to take out 50. Okay, well, if you're going to go to Vegas and blow it, okay, that 200% is probably not safe. As we've seen, you can see drawdowns even when you feel really bullish about sentiment. Now, if you're going to take that and you're going to say there's 10K on a ticker symbol that you're a big fan of and you're going to stick 40K in stability pool, okay, well, now that 200 is much safer because as that collateral goes down again, you can pull up the stability pool and pay back. So think about where you are as a player, how skilled, how much do you want to babysit this thing? Those things will, the less you want to pay attention, the higher the collateral. The less skilled, the higher the collateral. And then the other side is, again, how liquid are you? So again, if you're in the stability pool, if you're holding other assets, if you're doing other yield plays, it's safer to be at a lower collateral ratio as long as, again, you're skilled and understand, because then you can pay back to that. So again, less skill, more collateral, less frequent looking at it, more collateral, less Okay. Well, that was dramatic. Power just jumped out. Sorry about that, guys. It just clicked in and out, but it kicked off the Wi-Fi and went through a bit of shenanigans there. So let's see here. Fast, stop talking about religion. Let's see here. Where was I? Let me scroll up. Give me just a second. It's true. I'm a little shiny. All right, let's see here. All right. Davis, you're hurting my feelings and you're holding up the stream. I just got the power yank. Now I'm having to deal with you. It's hurting my feelings. You know it, man. Holler at me in the Telegram, man. I'd love to talk to you. We'll talk some football, brother. Yep. If more folks sell, the price will go down. I think that's everything, man. I think that's protocol, crypto, life in general, pretty much. And also stop being mean in the Telegrams, you bully. You're a smart guy. You have fun stuff to say. I always love hanging out with you. Okay, so this is one that got asked. So obviously the Power City guys, they did make that call. We went a different route, but that stuff cannot be edited. It's immutable code. It is what it is. There are no changes. So even like the redemptions and the LP rewards, those things are not done manually by the team. They're in the contracts. It's gone. It is out of our hands. It's gone. There it is. The code's all there. I very, very much appreciate that. Everybody, there's a ton of people in the space that build cool stuff, that support people in a variety of ways, that are engaging, that are streamers, people that again, like talking about, Black Hexagon and SJ, Brian doing all the hat gear, Marco building cool stuff, on and on and on. But the gratitude means a lot. It's one of those things that really does, kind of energize people, especially when it's so easy to be negative toward, even if there's not a good reason, just things you don't own or whatever's going on in the space, or, a lot of times, again, people just kind of cathartic to come in there and just, try to yell on the spot, especially when things are anonymous. So the gratitude is very appreciated. I appreciate the community a lot. They do a lot and send me a lot of things. A lot of gratitude. I really appreciate that. Ooh, here's a good one. Don't we need more USDL EUSDC liquidity? Otherwise, the never selling won't really work, right? No, you don't really need a specific pairing. The more pairings for USDL, the better. And I think that we'll see more and more stablecoin on stablecoin pairings in general. Coast, when the other guys get their stuff out over at Power City, Wrapped Eye, all that kind of good stuff. But you don't necessarily need the direct pairings. There's something called the auto router in the DEXs, or if you use a DEX aggregator, and they call them hops. It'll basically work through. So let's say there was zero liquidity between EUSDC and USDL. USDL has a big pairing with Pulse. It would just go USDL, Pulse to USDC. So those things will route between. So again, you want stronger pairings. It's a little more gas efficient. Tends to be more efficient system in general, but you don't. It's a need or a want, not a need necessarily. Yep. Jay Pond, what's up, brother? Really cool to see you. Bro Truth, exclamation point claim in the Telegram. I'll get you the site and everything. I'm gonna butcher this. Arnaud, time to buy Hex. Yeah, Hex is cool stuff, right? Okay, so JB says if you have 40K in USDL, how to get into your bank account? So the short answer and kind of the easiest is however you got the cash into the ecosystem in the first place. So you can just bridge back if you want. The Coast guys are providing an on-off ramp. PulseChain is working on things. Now, again, I'm not necessarily vouching for these guys individually. Just there's already additional off ramps and things being built in the system. But again, the first one is just however you got into the ecosystem now. There's more things being built on custodianship and adding different cool features for these things and ways to interact with third parties and even some legacy stuff. But the shorter answer is however you got in the first place. So back out through your exchange, going through ETH. There's a variety of extra tools there, so you can look at kind of the standard onboarding and offboarding. But the first one just however you got in. Purdy's MVP. Yeah. So Oscar. So again, there are nothing that we're doing directly. Nothing that I know of for sure is in the works. I just know some people building stuff and always wanted to find engaging ways to build on top. So if I was to absolutely guess with no inside baseball and no promises from anything that we're doing here, I think we might see some things like that, but there's nothing out there that's firm and nothing that we're doing as far as a burn. Godfather asked about the release. Yes, if you go through and claim, it's from the date of launch of contracts, which is the 1st, and it'll roll through. Yes, crash. Sorry about that, guys. Yep, rugged. Plug it in. Fast. Crack me up, really. I'm gonna scroll down here. A bunch of people making fun of me for not having backup power. True enough. Marco with the heart. Good to see you, brother. I was just talking about you, man. If you sack your entire life savings, how many Abduls have to be? Java, man. No one will say you're not an individual, brother. I have seen you say some pretty off the wall stuff, but definitely a legend, man. I actually admire your strict hold to your ideals. So obviously some of that stuff's kind of funny, man, but you're a legend, man. Actually a pretty interesting character, man. I mean that very, very politely. Very cool cat. So we're pretty much caught up there. I'm trying to think of what any of the other big issues that I kind of saw are cool stuff. So let me bring up a little of the protocol before you guys get your questions in here. I'm all back here now. After the power rugged us. Let me get this situated here. Share going. Power. Yeah, so I just want to highlight these again. So even after the drawdown, being at a nice 200%, 6 million stakes. So again, whenever we're looking at the kind of chart movement, there's 6 million. So there's $6 million worth of liquidation events that would have to happen before that actually got passed. Now again, there's more going on there. You'd have to look at the other like total collateral ratio, but again, anytime soon, those liquidations are not coming close. I would imagine, again, if people are this early into something like LL, they're probably big believers in PLS. Now, it doesn't mean that people don't take profits. We see that from validators, from players altogether. We've seen whales coming in wreck prices. And actually, on that note, too, the Tetra guys, I think, are working on limit orders. I think I saw their post on that. So I know that we're going to have, again, more ways to have better order execution on all this stuff in the future. So one of the funny things about order execution is it's kind of one of those that you, assuming that you're accumulating, you want to do it right. And you kind of hope everybody else doesn't. So remember that when they push the price down, that's slippage. So they're extracting less value from the chart. So I'm telling you that you should, but if you don't want to, it probably works out better for people who want to buy after you. So it's up to you how you want to do your order execution. And again, these numbers here are daily. So again, we're going to change those over to annual. So that'd be pretty interesting. And then when you look at that stake loan, like that's where like basically all the loan is sitting there. There's almost no liquid. So that's pretty interesting. And 9 million. That is insane. And now again, you're seeing a big chunk of that's staked and just the protocol. You're seeing a lot of that's in LP rewards. I think I saw earlier, I'm gonna have the number wrong, but like a 6-figure USDL buy into like PulseX. So again, there's a lot going on there, but remember, like this liquidity that opens up with USDL, like that's opening up liquidity options, right? Like that goes anywhere it wants, right? Like that can go, if that's you, it can go into your tickers. If you're a Java, it can go into your bug out bag. If it's fast, it can go into browse. It can go wherever you guys want to send that stuff, right? Like that's completely users. So that's another moment there. So remember, that's all user control. So like this PLS is not under any control. It's an individual vault that only those users interact with, or the contract called an LL. Like there's no control of stuff. There's no admin keys. It just does what it does. Like as soon as it was deployed, we're just running a front end. Other people can run a front end, and it is what it is. The contracts just run. They just do what they're told. It's just code. Let me jump back here. See if there's any questions. So we're gonna go through. We might have a neat way to do it on. It'll just be random, of course. Well, we'll probably do it on a live stream just because it's more fun, engaging, get everybody all excited for that stuff. I do think we're going to do it in kind of a pretty cool, novel way, but not 100%. So I don't want to promise. So it'll be done at random, obviously. But yeah, we'll get that out pretty soon. Hardware, I see you're hitting the rewind. So eventually when you get to this, it'll be cool. So what's up, buddy? Ernest shooting again, exclamation point claim. And we can post it here from the LL account. But remember, always get any links, any contract addresses, get them from official sources, guys. Like we've seen people that get wrecked from Telegram. It's been going on for a long time, all the way back to the PulseChain. There's 100 million fake walruses that DM people. Guys, it's not a DM from me. It's never a DM from me. If you reach out to me, if we have a conversation, okay. But if you just reach out, man, like that's not me, guys. Like get these things from official sources and just take your time. Like, get them from 2 places. If you need contract addresses, just get them from the DApp. Get them from the DApp. Just be safe, guys. No reason to be in a rush. Okay, let's see here. Halil. From what I understand, liquid loans would theoretically decrease the sell pressure of Pulse, but if I want to sell my USDL and put it back in the bank account, it implies selling PLS to some extent. You can get real big picture about it, but remember, the price is only directly affected by whatever is actually moving in and out of liquidity pools. So whenever you have things that are like derivatives, they tend to be both price positive and negative. It just depends over a length of time and also at what point. So really strong derivatives that have like a very positive feedback will still be net negative at certain points. Like chronologically, you'll kind of see them oscillate. Like you can see this with like GBTC. So you would, again, just very broad, something like Grayscale Bitcoin where there's a trust. That trust opening up optionality for new buyers to buy should mean more buyers, more onboards, a higher price, just theoretically. But if it sells at a premium, that's going to be true, right? Like you're bringing in extra buyers and Grayscale theoretically is not selling, right? But if Grayscale starts to sell and it's no longer at that premium and it's at a deficit, then you have to go pick that up, right? Like, why am I going to come buy your Bitcoin if I can get the exposure for less? So Grayscale is the one I almost always go to, and that it is, again, very loose. You could argue some of these kind of things in semantics, but again, just in general, it added functionality. So it's probably net positive. Most of the time it was at a premium. But now that it's at a negative, it's actually, you could say that it's holding the price down because you're going to see people go buy up that spread before they go buy real Bitcoin, which again, it's going parabolic now. And I actually haven't checked it. Last I looked was a couple of weeks ago. It was around like 10%. But that gives you kind of a functionality there. You can see that. But with USDL, essentially that pulse is locked up. Now you can kind of get into with, you know, some of the things like with HSI stakes or some of the stuff like the Maximus Boys build. They remove sell pressure, but in some ways they also remove buy pressure, right? So if you go buy a bunch of X and then lock it up in HSI stake, okay, well, if I buy the HSI stake and you sell it, like that doesn't affect the hex price, right? So the only thing that affected it at the time, there was that acute buy, but now that stake might sell. So now if those HSI stakes are at a discount, then I'm going to go pick those up and I'm going to get my same exposure to hex, but I'm not going to be buying on the price. So again, gets a little crazy in there. But for the most part, again, you add functionality and essentially, again, in a lot of ways, liquid loans is an extension of the PLS tokenomics. So it should be, hey, there's more features, there's more interesting things to do. There's things that people will elect to do rather than sell. So that should give you your net positive. And then you're going to have times where, again, how USDL moves around, what people do with it, all these kind of things. You could see short terms where maybe it's negative. It's a really long-winded answer. Yep. So this is one we get quite often here. So WaLLrus, how will LL incorporate other tokens down the road? No option to do that. Other teams are building that kind of cool stuff. And there's only so many things that really make sense for something like this because you need it to be something that has a lot of liquidity, has a lot of pairings, it's very stable, that doesn't necessarily have other use cases. So this is one of the things that you tend to see with assets and really currency in general, that phrase we've kind of probably heard a lot, money goes where it's treated best. So we see this with all kinds of things where, you know, for a long time, a lot of PLS and PLSX was locked up in the ink pools because that was the best game in town. If somebody comes up with a better game, it'll tend to move out of there. So you kind of want things to do what they do best in general. So again, this is kind of an extension of PLS. We're not going to add anything. Again, LL's immutable. There's no way to add. But again, the Power City guys are going to do PLSX. I don't know that there's that many other things that would be super viable on the chain. But again, maybe those things will change in the future. And maybe a team will pick that up. How liquid is PLS? I mean, it depends on how you want to measure it out, but I mean, there's millions and millions of liquidity pretty all over the place. Oh, here you go. Compared to other chains, some of that stuff can be really tricky in the sense that you can look at just the raw LP pools, but there's more and more cross-chain bridges. There's more and more DEX aggregators where you can get similar order execution with less. So that's one of the interesting things about even something. All right, we have to take a step back here. So even something like being over collateralization is like inefficiency. So when we look at like fractional reserve banking, it's an absolute travesty the way it's employed now. Obviously, we kind of, most of us have a feeling for that. But the original concept was, why do I need to hold 100% of these liabilities if I'm never essentially going to get called on that? I can be more efficient if I only have to hold 80. Well, and then when it gets down to essentially zero, like we have in some modern places, okay, well, that's a train wreck. But it does make sense. Again, in a perfect world of scenario, you can get some efficiencies out of something that's fractional reserve. It does not make sense for stable coins, which is why, again, something like LL is, in this particular mechanic, slightly inefficient to make sure that it's hyper safe. That's why it's over collateralized. That's what the point of that buffer is. So again, when you look at those things, there's different ways to basically make something liquid. Again, there's a variety of DEXs. So you don't necessarily have to go to like a standard Uniswap V2 pool and say, hey, just how much stuff is there? Things like V3. There's some really cool other protocols doing novel things to help make that really, really efficient. And again, the more you add like DEX aggregators, I don't need to have it sitting in one big pile because I'm going to go hit a bunch of different piles. We have things like auto routers. Again, it doesn't have to be in one particular pool. So it's more difficult now to see how liquid something is because there's more and more routes to make these things liquid, to get good order execution, whether you're buying or selling. So compared to other chains, I mean, again, I would say that because we're still building up infrastructure, I would say that, I guess, off the top is sort of just a yes or no. It's probably less liquid than some other chains at this point. But again, that changes more and more and more as we see different kinds of listings, better ways for order execution, and more and more off ramps. So like the Coast guys are doing great stuff. Everything they do makes this thing more liquid. Another same question about changing the capital loans. There is no changing for that stuff. Yep. So again, there's all kinds of options there. Yep. There's nothing to change. It's immutable. That's the whole magic here. No way to change it. All right, guys. Let's see here. We're at like a hour and 10 minutes minus the blackout we had here. Do you guys? I'll hang out around. Let's say another like 10 or 15, so we get some questions in here. If you guys want, we can do some more off the cuff stuff. We got most of it out. Again, we put out a ton of content. A couple of things to check out are like the the start here function on the website, the quiz and the giveaway. Those are the big things really going on. So you can check those things out to, really, really like brush up again on your education, especially if you want to go use it now that we're live. Guys, testnet's still there. I know no one at all cares what I'm about to say, but testnet's still there. Like, you can go test this stuff out and make sure that it's not live money. Now, the transactions are really inexpensive, but again, you just don't want to have problems. You can use testnet, follow all the blog content, check out the tour and all the stuff right there in the DApp. It's all meant there to make this stuff easy, be very intuitive. So use that stuff. Absolutely, man. This is a big one here. So Ernest, again, just you can the answer's up there in the chat, or again, !claim in the main chat. Like, you want to go get those things from official sources. Let's see. Yeah. So sound effects point here. This is a big one. So I've touched on this a few times, but I always like to highlight it. The fees being lower are really are a big deal for two things. One, it just physically costs you less, right there on the tin, right? The other is when transactions are as cheap as they are on PLS, it's not just that it costs you less to transact, it's that it will make sure that you don't have to change your behaviors because of cost, right? So just think about gasoline's an easy one, right? Just literal gas. If gas right now is 10 cents, you who cares, right? Burn it down. Doesn't cost you anything. If it went to 20 cents, same thing, right? Like we'd be so used to a more expensive that would be no issue, right? Even though it doubled in cost, right? But if it goes from say $1 to $2, okay, that doubling there is significant, and that's going to change. Hey, maybe I want to take one less vacation, or things like commerce and moving things around at scale. It makes a difference. As we've seen, when you start seeing $3 to $7 a gallon for gas, it's not just that it costs you more, but you'll change behaviors, right? Like it starts to affect pricing. It starts to affect maybe you don't want to drive your a lifted truck if you're like a Texas boy, stuff like that. So when you have things that are as efficient as PLS, people can do things like multi-sig. They can come in here and try out DeFi. They can make more swaps. They can do things. It's something as simple as a test transaction. I remember people losing money in this last bull run on ETH because they didn't want to burn $50 to send a single token or a USD or whatever it was to do a test transaction, because they're like, man, I don't want to eat up $50. Man, on PLS, send the test transaction. It doesn't cost you anything. So yes, not only is it cheaper, but it's so cheap that it allows people to not let it affect behaviors and use DeFi, not have to worry about being gas efficient with security or kind of safety in general. So it's a great one there. I see some guys on the chart. Guys, I get it. That's what it is. People sell it on the chart. Again, you can't program a chart. You can just build code, build cool stuff. You can make sure that the yield's where it's supposed to be, make sure there's all those incentives to buy, things like that. You can use the DEX aggregators to access liquidity that's on multiple DEXs. But hey, again, when things work, when protocols are beautiful, when adoption's high, and you get that mismatch between sort of the technicals and what you see on the chart, typically that's opportunity. It's not financial advice, not forward-facing price statements. Just that's what things that tend to happen in crypto, man. Godfather, I see the shout out again, man. Thanks a lot, sir. Really, really appreciate you, brother. Yes, this is one that I've been asked quite a bit. So is there impediment if we don't take up the PLP tokens? No. All you do is you stake them in there, and all that will happen is that you'll stop accruing that loan emission, right? So as you're in, you're just getting paid out. And then there's that cutoff at that block height in the LP rewards contract. So block height just means time. So at that time or block height, that loan will stop accruing, but you can pull them out whenever you're ready. So you don't have to worry about yanking them out beforehand or anything like that. You just pull them out, and then you can either hold them and allow your LP position to maintain, or you can go ahead and end your LP position. Basically, all you do is pull them out, collect your loan, and then your interaction with that LP from the DApp standpoint, it's done. It's all nice and clean. You're just providing LP at that point. You can go and stake it or add to it or whatever you'd like to do. Correct. That ends at that 42 days. So Azra, remember the redemptions don't start until day 14. Now, maybe you're using maybe it's one of the terminologies there. And I did appreciate the post. I got your DM on Twitter, man. Really appreciate that. You sent me a few positive things, man. So really, really nice to see that kind of outreach, man. That's something I know it sounds corny, guys, but that's something I recommend and just try to encourage people. Just things are just really bitter in general. The U.S. is extremely tense for all kinds of reasons. Don't need to get into any particulars. Guys, when grown men reach out and say something, just, hey, man, appreciate you, brother. Thanks, WaLLrus. It's a big deal. Man, you got friends and family, people in the community, people that are doing things. Guys, thank you, man. It's so simple, but it really does make a big, big difference, guys. Like, I'm all for gratitude. I'm not like one of those, synchronicity as far as like the secret, but I do think that you tend to hit what you aim at, and that gratitude and those things tend to be reciprocated. So gratitude goes a long, long way, guys. So I appreciate it a huge amount. Ramon, what's up, brother? Yep, exactly. 14 days. And yeah, brother, more than welcome. More than welcome. Yeah, guys. So again, I think we kind of addressed a little bit of the FUD. Chart's rough. It is what it is. But remember, the yield from the loan token is ripping. The protocol stats as far as that early adoption are huge. One thing I wanted to pull up with here. Ramon, I see your question, brother. Give me just 1 second. So when I last pulled some of these metrics up real quick, gentlemen, I know this is great TV. So when I last pulled up, this was at about 4 days, maybe 4.5. the loan fees that had been paid out to those stakers was just under 60K. So even before redemptions, and even with a low PLS price, which again, in general, again, all things being equal, a higher PLS price, higher issuance, more gain for those loan holders, is already at a just under 5 million in the first year on pace. 5 million in fees. That's again, right off the bat, no redemptions, only 9 million USDL that's out in issuance. I say only because I think we'll see really, really cool numbers in the future. And with the PLS price that's relatively low. So guys, that's very bullish. I would be really encouraged to see if those fees could even get up into the double digits. Now, again, I don't know. All I'm saying is when we look through and we see the yield, that's bullish stuff, right? And again, yield doesn't necessarily equal price, but in general, if you can pick out something that will yield you X, it generally costs at least Y, just again, as rough math. So again, I'm going to really hammer this phrase, and it's something that is really stuck with me, not just from kind of an investing standpoint, but it's just got a good mental lens. One man's asset is another man's liability, and one man's liability is another man's asset. So again, charts an opportunity. Again, you're only locking in losses if you actually sell, but the yield's pouring in, guys. But I get it. Trust me. Added today, but not showing up. Just to confirm, it's USDO PLS. So I'm not sure if you just mistyped that logo there. If you want to clarify for me there, it does show the so if you want to clarify, brother, don't worry, Ramon, I'm gonna get your question in 2 seconds. So it needs to be USDL PLS. And if you're not sure that's the right pool, you can double check in the DApp right here in LP Rewards. I'll actually show you, brother. Hold on 1 second. So you can do LP Rewards. You can use this link right here. Now, again, with IFPS, it's a little clunky. So if it pulls up and says that you're the first one trying to create the pool, you're not. Just toggle it from V1 back to V2 and just confirm that's the pool you're in. If that's the pool you're in, you should just be able to stake. But if for some reason that's not popping up there and you have another problem, don't worry. You can reach out to us on Telegram, or if something you know is going on, you can just ping me here and I'll try to get you before I get out of here, brother. Ramon, yeah, I would definitely hit the replay, man. We touched on this just a bit. I don't think it's as much well games as everybody else does. We can go through and do a little more kind of chain sleuthing to see. I saw a handful of guys saying that it was a couple of big validators. I know we're pushing down the price. I think some of it is just that sloshing, people chasing big green candles on BTC and other stuff. It doesn't really, to me, look like the well games are trying to cause liquidations or anything. I know it's like an easy narrative. And, again, I think sometimes we're just looking for a narrative that will explain the chart for us. But when you look at, you pull up the PLS chart, there's like 2 similar drawdowns, not that far back in the chart, where you see kind of very similar price action. So this one just has an easy narrative paint toward it. I don't really think it's much well games. And if it is, those are dangerous games. So again, just to kind of rehash, but I would definitely check out the replay. I shot this out earlier. When you push a price down, like you're eating slippage. Like it's not just well games because they have the bags to do it. It's well games because it takes a pretty savvy cat to actually go through and say, all right, what slippage, what size, can I hold that price down? Is that, am I going to be able to go get XYZ liquidation event? And again, the liquidations don't hit market, and there's already liquidation bots clicking most of those. So a lot of times, they're not able to actually go through and manually click those along with other players. So it can happen. There are unique situations where maybe there's a player large enough willing to take the risk, and maybe there's enough incentive, but it is significantly more rare than people want to really give it credit. And it's much easier to go, oh, whales are just trying to liquidate people, which is what you'd see more common with things like BTC and ETH, because the way longs and shorts are handled, and there's more centralization in certain places. But again, I'm sure we'll see it. I really doubt that's that much of the price action we have right now, though, brother. Oh man, that is hysterical, man. Dude, I'll reach out to Brad and have you hit me up, man. It's yeah, he's told me he's talked to you a few times. That is hysterical, brother. It's really good to hear from you. We'll have to try to make some more money on a World Cup game in the future, brother. It's hysterical to see you in here, homie. Ramon, yeah, I see you saying thanks, brother. Absolutely, man. Yeah, again, it's kind of like an easy narrative to jump onto. So you're going to see that kind of mechanic where if there's a story and a chart fits the story, boom, that's the reason. Again, typically it's buys and sells, and buy the rumor, sell the news kind of event stuff. Welcome back in the group because I was a man. Yeah, so this is one right here, guys. So we set the combat relatively tight. But if you have a problem like this, most people, if you know my my Telegram handle, it's WaLLrus with 2 L's. I try to get to everybody if I can. The admins are really helpful. So HexiCat, Nas, Eon, Hot Pro, all those great guys. Like there's a lot of people, deleted users that are in there. If you reach out to the admin, just say, hey guys, my bad, I posted a link. There's a couple of like banned words. Some people are missing the CAPTCHA. If anyone's having a problem getting the Telegram group, just reach out to one of us. We'll be happy to stick you back in. Same thing with like some deleted posts. There's a few like catch-all words, and Combat's even delete some of the admin stuff sometimes. So we have it sent pretty strict. We had also kind of a spam rate. So a few of those settings are turned all the way up. But if you got kicked out for something that's an issue there, just let us know. And honestly, even to people, a lot of times we're all happy for the criticisms. Like we dealt with some of the questions here. But again, like guys, admins are volunteers. It's fine for frustration. We got a couple people in here talking about the chart and all that kind of stuff. I get it. You know what I mean? But it's also, it's not therapy to go in there and just vent and, stress out, the other members and the admin guys. So as long as you're being respectful and working through stuff going to be fine. It's not a problem. Just when people go in there and just kind of rant and rave, whether it's justified or not, we just don't have time for that, guys. But again, even if that was your issue and that's why you got booted, 99 times out of 100, if you just have an admin and say, look, I was kind of an ass, I was a little out of line, or even, hey, look, I was just mad, I still think it's your guys' fault, but I'm calm, let me come back in the chat. Guys, 99 times out of 100, everyone's welcome back in. Come and contribute. It's not a problem. We've thought about some of that stuff. I don't know that that's in the short-term plans. It's interesting. I think we'll probably do the wait and see how well that integration kind of comes out. As of right now, it's not as pretty, I think, as we would all like. But again, it does help with some decentralization there. But for us, again, we're going to have multiple front ends up here pretty soon, and that helps a lot with that nature. So again, if there's an issue with the front end there, you can always hop on other ones. So it's something that's, it's in the cards. I wouldn't say that we're for sure not going to do that. It's just kind of in the back of the burner list. There's cool stuff with Fetch. There's some updates on the DApp. There's integration of stuff. But we just have all kinds of cool stuff that we're trying to put together, and that one just isn't high up there yet. Yep, man. Like I said, again, that's how you look at it, right? Whenever you see a chart. So again, people fall in love with charts, and it's easy too, right? Like charts up, people will bang their chest about a chart, even if they only caught 10% of the movement. They'll be like, oh, look how high up we are. And I get it, right? Like that's kind of our bragging, right? In a lot of ways, but all that really matters is your exposure, how much you caught, when you bought, when you sold. So again, it doesn't mean that you need to go buy every time there's a dip. You can be overexposed to things, but again, if you liked it at, what is it? If you liked it at $1, you'll love it at a penny kind of thing. Or the people who hated it at a penny will end up loving it at $1. So if your conviction's all there, if you see positive metrics, then again, dips are opportunities. But that's for everyone inside themselves, man. Astro, absolutely, man. It's going up and rock and rolling. Man, I'm with you, brother. I appreciate it. I think this stuff is cool. I think that anyone who just screams at his leverage is looking at it really short-sighted. And that's a variety of really smart guys right now. I think are just, it's leverage. So let's dive in that just a touch here quickly. So I think this is one we always want to highlight. So my first thing is it's absolutely leverage. Cool. You need to be safe. We preach this stuff, we're as conservative as it gets. But in people's heads, when they say leverage, that scope, LL is done before that scope even really starts. So when you look at most leverage platforms, there's some that allow you to go like 1.5, but for the most part, you're basically 2x and up, right? That's higher than you can even do with a standard loan. There's a couple ways you can do it, but again, those users know how to do that. They're welcome to it. It's on them. You really can't even leverage that far with LL. Now you can, right? You can go to like that 110, 112 limit, but essentially again, pushing it to pretty much the ragged edges, basically, in that 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 range, right? Which is very conservative leverage. It's still leverage, don't get me wrong, but it's very, very conservative for overall what we're looking at. So you want to be careful on those things. But it's just not the same as traditional leverage platforms, right? Like when you get liquidated, you don't go to zero. You're going to lose 10%. Now, again, you could have spent that funds, but again, you're going to end up taking that haircut, but you still have the USDL. You can't push the leverage as far. It really is extremely different, right? So like firecrackers go bang and so do nuclear bombs. So they both go bang. They're both technically bombs, but they're not close to the same thing. And they don't have the same impact, right? So again, 10x longs can be super beneficial. You can see things like what we saw with GME and see really advanced, heavy, short squeeze craziness. You don't really have that much of an impact. You don't have that kind of an acute effect with what we have with an LL. So there are a lot of cool things. There's great utility. I think they tend to skip over how helpful USDL is, adding tokenomics to PLS, like that type of, again, the feature set add, how important it is, and just yell at it as leverage. Now, to be fair, if you just call it leverage and you're yelling about it, I'd almost rather people lean on that side, even though it's less bullish for us and it's a little, you kind of have to just deal with some of the animosity and the angst of it. But again, I would rather people did that than just think, hey, it's cool, it's awesome, and they just roll the dice on things. So I'd rather people lean that side. But again, I think that the more people have time with the system, see how things go out, see how many vaults don't get liquidated, that every time there's a price down, not everyone went belly up. Like you'll see, we see that all the time with like a BTC or ETH movement where, we'll see a BTC candle and it's $10 million worth of longs get eviscerated. Like you're just not going to see that type of movement with something like LL1 from the system. And also, again, the users, look at most of the questions. Hey, how can I be safe? How can we do this? Hey, how does USDO? The people are working through it, not just, hey, I'm maxed out and I'm dumping it back and trying to get leverage. Like that's not what the vast majority of people in the system are doing. And again, the last note on that is, if you're a conservative user, you're not going to have the risky users profile. So even if you see players getting liquidated because they're being aggressive and understand systems and whatever their mechanics and reasons are, if you're up at 300 or 500%, like what do you care? Like it went, PLS price moves 20%. Who cares, man? Like that's why you set it there. So again, remember, it's not that advanced. It's not that crazy. It doesn't have that kind of acute action. And if you're being conservative, even though you're using the same tool, you don't have the same risk profile. So I think that stuff's big to be keyed on there. Problem solver and love liquid loans goes hand in hand, brother. Not to mention you look like a classy gentleman, man, like the cowboy hat. I'm a Southern boy myself. Financial mind state right there, man. Remember, exclamation point claim. Go have that in the Telegram. Make sure you always get those sites from the official sources, man. Love liquid loans. Astro, I appreciate you, brother. All right, guys, we're coming up on an hour and a half, man. Any last questions, comments, emotional outburst, questions about football? I always like to touch on that stuff. We talk a lot of crypto and all that good stuff, guys, but like, I don't actually gamble that much, but I like sports betting. I like that nuanced stuff. I'm absolutely like addicted to fantasy football, that kind of fun stuff. So we got any fun, bizarre questions? Anyone want to ask if I polished my head? All that kind of good stuff. MCR, appreciate y'all as well, guys. You guys have been really stand up, doing a lot of cool education. Really supportive. I can't wait for the stuff you guys are building. So just absolute tip of the hats. Let's go Horns, baby. Texas boys made it to the final. I actually caught the Texas Tech game as well with one of our buddies. It was pretty legit. So that was pretty fun, man. All right. I'm going to hit one more technical question. And if we get one more bizarre question, I'll hit it up here in just a second. See, when Pulse goes up a lot, let's say, how will the stability pool rewarded? Okay. That's a good one there, right? So if you have positive price action, the stability pool will then pay out less, right? You'll just get that loan emission. But you're going to see users modulate their vaults as well. So if PLS goes up, you're going to tend to see people they'll basically dial back in, right? So let's say that I feel comfortable at 200% because I want to be capital efficient. I don't want a lot of dormant capital. I'm doing XYZ thing, right? Well, if Pulse doubled tomorrow, I would probably go back to my position, right? I'm just going to want more of that same value out in the market doing whatever I was doing. So again, you're going to kind of see in general, you can't get liquidated on the way up, right? It's only on those downward movements. And if you're really particular on it, you can actually look and see how the chart in those days yield. You can kind of line that up with East performance and what the split pool has done on liquidity. And as we get more time, you'll be able to see that on the chain with us as well. But in general, yeah, if you're not seeing any liquidation events, which is in general a good thing, but again, for stability provider, you'd like to be able to take a little yield, take a little haircut. You're going to see that essentially it's just that loan emission. And that's also why that loan emission is there in the beginning, to make sure that it's worthwhile to have a bunch of just, robust USDL stockpiled there. All right, let's see. Quick, what was the date for the redemptions gets activated? It's going to be like roughly 10 days from now. We'll put out updates and a clear time on that. It comes from the contract deployment time to be exact, but it's roughly 10 days from now. Ooh, there's a good one. What are the Dolphins' chances to win a playoff game? Man, I am an absolute, as you guys would assume, is like a data nerd. I love Mike McDaniels. That guy's an absolute goon. I like the way that they're doing the kind of cheater motion that you're seeing with Tyreek Hill. I like the way they're scheming things. They're attacking what they call like banjo, which is sort of zone with man match principle stuff. Some really cool stuff on the back end. They're really breaking the way defensive rules are covering. So when you're seeing like the Vic Fangio, which is like a lot of cover six quarters with like match principles, the way they're running those crossing routes, they're trying to basically break those rules along the way and confuse. And that's where they're getting a lot of busted coverages or like they're kind of attacking that zone that you see with like a too high shell. So I think they're going to be loaded up, man. They've been challenged a little bit by better teams, but I think that's them just really working through it. When you've got that much filthy speed, I like Tua. I like Mike McDaniels. I'm bullish on him. All right, I sounded smart for 10 seconds about a little football. Guys, we're going to do more of these. Relax. System's working well. Charts go where they go. I'm really excited about all this cool stuff. You guys, let me know what we can do. You can comment on this. Check out the replay, guys. Always come to the Telegram. Again, make sure we're sharing out that gratuity. Make sure you're reaching out to the people that just have an influence on you personally and professionally. I made sure that was one of the things that I did after launch, was just thinking about how many people had supported me personally, along with with stuff we were doing. And it's a big deal, man. A lot of people from the community have, just whether it's just encouragement, shooting out cool stuff, WaLLrus memes, whatever it is, that stuff's live. Every once in a while, someone will find a funny WaLLrus video and be like, dude, this you. There was a hysterical one if people want to go back in time and find the very loving WaLLrus in front of the fireworks. That's a good throwback. But guys, I appreciate it. Y'all be safe. Pay attention to your collateral levels. Check out all the details in the protocol. Make sure you guys are jumping in the challenge. Make sure you guys are taking the quiz, playing with that stuff if you're still getting dialed into the DeFi. And guys, let's love liquid loans.